If you're building on top of someone else's AI model in Europe, you really need to listen up. The new EU AI Act has a hidden catch that could make you legally responsible for the entire model, and it can happen without you even knowing it. So let's break down how you can stay out of this trap.
Okay, so picture this. You're building your next big thing on a foundation model from a company like OpenAI, Anthropic, or maybe Microsoft. You're integrating it, you're tweaking it, making it just right for your customers. That sounds totally normal, right? Standard operating procedure.
Well, you could be walking straight into a massive compliance headache. See, the EU AI Act has some very specific rules that can take the huge legal and financial weight of being an AI provider and shift it from the original company straight onto you. And this can all be triggered by something that sounds as innocent as just fine-tuning your model. To really get how this happens, we first have to look at the AI value chain the way the law sees it. And it all boils down to two really important roles.
First up, you've got the provider. Just think of them as the original creator. This is the company that actually builds the AI model and puts it out there on the market. They're the ones who carry the main compliance burden from the get-go.
And then you've got the deployer. Now, this could be pretty much anyone. A person, a company who takes that provider's AI system and uses it for their job. They're usually downstream, building apps or services on top of that original model.
So the basic flow looks something like this. An upstream provider makes a big general-purpose AI model. Then a downstream deployer comes along, plugs it in, customizes it, and builds a brand new product for their own customers. Seems simple enough, but this is exactly where things can get complicated. So let's get right to the million-dollar question. What are the exact conditions that make a deployer suddenly wake up and find themselves with all the serious obligations of a provider?
Article 25 of the AI Act pretty much lays out three main tripwires. First, if you take a high-risk AI system and just slap your own logo on it. Second, if you take a system that wasn't high-risk and change what it does so that it becomes high-risk. And number three, and this is the big one, the most complex one, is if you make a substantial modification to an existing model.
And let's be crystal clear, this is a situation you really, really want to avoid. Becoming a provider isn't just a name change. It means you're on the hook for a whole mess of expensive, time-consuming legal stuff. Risk management, tons of technical documents, conformity checks. The quote here says it all. It's a huge compliance cost that can easily run into the millions. Okay, let's zoom in on that third trigger. Because this idea of substantial modification is where things get a little fuzzy, and it's where most companies are probably going to get tripped up. So what on earth does it actually mean?
Well, the official definition in the Act is a bit vague. It says it's a change that the original provider didn't see coming, and that messes with the system's compliance or its risk profile. Yeah, that still leaves a whole lot of gray area, doesn't it?
Thankfully, the EU's AI office gave us a little something to clear things up. They've put out a guideline that says a modification is presumed to be substantial if the fine-tuning you do requires at least 1/3 of the computing power that was used to train the original model. So now we have a concrete, even if it's just an indicator, a threshold to think about.
You can really see the whole spectrum here. On one end, you've got these small, low-level customizations. Those are generally fine. But on the other end, you've got these major high-level modifications that really change the model at its core. And the AI Act is basically trying to draw a line in the sand right between those two.
So what it all comes down to is knowing which side of the line your techniques fall on. Things like simple prompt engineering, tweaking parameters like temperature, or even using retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, to pull in outside info, those are all likely to be seen as insubstantial. But the moment you start fine-tuning the model on a huge new dataset, or using distillation to create a new, smaller model, or, and this is a big one, changing the core architecture, well, you're almost certainly crossing over into substantial modification territory. All right, enough with the theory. Let's make this practical and see how this actually plays out in the real world with a couple of quick case studies. Okay, first up, an IT service provider builds a custom chatbot for a client using GPT-4. They tailor it with very specific prompts, and they use RAG to hook it into the company's private documents. Because they aren't fundamentally changing that core model, this is an insubstantial modification. There's still just a deployer here, not a new provider. So that big compliance burden, it stays with OpenAI. Now, in our second case, a scale-up creates a platform that coordinates different models from Microsoft and OpenAI. They use some pretty fancy prompt chaining to make the models work together, but, and this is key, they never actually alter the base models themselves. The result? They're classified as a distributor, not even a deployer in this sense, and definitely not a provider. All those obligations stay way upstream with the original creators. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? It really just boils down to one simple idea. Under the EU AI Act, legal responsibility follows substantial change and risk. The more you fundamentally change a model and its potential for harm, the more likely you are to inherit the full, heavy weight of a provider's obligations.
And that really leaves us with the final question for you and your team to think about. As you keep building and innovating with these incredible tools, you need to take a really hard look at your methods. Are you simply deploying a system? Or are your modifications so deep, so substantial, that in the eyes of the law, you're actually becoming a provider? Knowing the answer to that question could literally save you millions.